So I am going to be responding to a client. They sent me a message saying that they're really, really struggling. They're having a really rough couple days after feeling a lot better for a couple weeks. And I always tell you guys, recovery is extremely up and down, even whenever you're doing the right things. And I wanted to just let you listen in on me kind of giving this person some encouragement because I want you to be encouraged as well. So let's go ahead and get going on this. I'm going to click the record button. And of course, I'm going to, keep them private. Hey, thank you so much for your message. I really appreciate you kind of being vulnerable and sharing what you're going through. And I'm definitely going to give you some really big encouragement. I did read your message a little bit earlier, but I want to reread it just to make sure that I kind of put it fresh on my mind. So you said, "Hey, Jordan, been following the program pretty much to a T. I started a morning routine, including greens, hydrating, and electrolytes. Awesome. I've been slowly changing up my diet, which wasn't the best. Good, food is mood. And the big thing for me was I started doing a lot of exposure coupled with relaxation because I was basically avoiding everything in life because of my derealization and existential OCD. I was feeling super hopeful, and there were 2 weeks where I was doing rather well and was thinking I got this. But since Friday, I've been in extreme crisis. All of my symptoms seem to get worse. I was back to thinking how I felt like death and that dying would be easier. It's been pretty bad, and I haven't had the energy to really do anything except hide away, which is what I used to do. And I'm definitely resisting the symptoms. And do you think this setback is normal? And maybe my body is fighting back because I was learning how to deal with things better. I'm just very scared. I lost all my progress and very scared in general. Any advice would be great." Okay. And by the way, if you hear any weird noises, it's my 15-year-old dog that is, making some very interesting noises these days. So the very first thing that I want to tell you, I don't believe in setbacks during recovery. I think that using the word setback over emotionalizes an already very difficult situation, right? And that's because whenever you're rewiring the nervous system, it doesn't happen all at once. And your brain is very stubborn, right? Because you've been walking around in fight, flight, freeze response for a very, very long time. And from your perspective, you've just been dealing with symptoms, right? But from your survival brain's perspective, you have literally been being followed by a lion for a long time. And so whenever you start to do things in this program that are designed to communicate safety, such as the self-regulation and getting the right education and doing exposure coupled with relaxation and, just taking care of your body, you're going to start to have moments where your brain perceives safety, which is called neuroception, and you'll go back into what's called your social engagement system. You learn about this in the education part of the course. But then the first time that you experience a sensory trigger after that, your brain's going to be like, okay, wait a second, maybe you're not safe. And it's going to quickly put you back into fight, flight, freeze, right? And so your brain is essentially trying to protect you and keep you alive by not letting you stay in your social engagement system for very long. And so you're going to have to just repeatedly do things that communicate safety over and over and over and over again, long enough for your brain to believe that you're safe enough to desensitize your sensory triggers and for you to stay in your social engagement system. And so it's going to feel like a tug of war right now. But what you're doing right now, and I'm not saying this to create any shame whatsoever. I understand why you're kind of retreating back to avoidance. It's scary. It is absolutely scary as hell to experience derealization, and especially the existential OCD. I dealt with that for so many years, and it was just debilitating. I get it. I will say that because of these avoidance behaviors, though, and kind of going back to resisting symptoms, avoiding sensory triggers that can induce symptoms, now we're sending mixed signals to your nervous system, right? And so I don't know if you've ever had like a love interest, right? And at one point they were sending signals as far as the way that they were talking to you, that they were interested. And all of a sudden now it felt like they were pulling back and you didn't really know if they liked you or not, right? That's kind of how it is whenever you're part of the time doing things that communicate safety, but the other part of the time You're doing things that are reflective of there being threat, because if there was a lion present, you would avoid life, right? And so with that being said, you don't have to be perfectly consistent in order to rewire these neural pathways and show your brain that you're safe, but you do need to be pretty consistent, right? And so another thing that I wanted to add, in addition to just simply like, we got to get back up, okay? Like, we need to reduce the lag time between whenever you have one of these moments and whenever you get back up and get back to doing the things that communicate safety. Because the longer that we delay that, the more that it's going to take time for you to feel better, right? But I also wanted to say, your brain assumes that what's familiar is safe. And so this goes even deeper, right? One of the reasons why it's so hard to rewire your nervous system is because even though it's uncomfortable for you being in these symptoms, it still is what's familiar. And so whenever you start to do things that communicate safety, your brain is going to perceive threat with you perceiving safety. Because, oh, wait a second, this is not familiar to us, right? And this is also putting your life in jeopardy. That's what your brain thinks. So because being calm and safely embodied and in your social engagement system is unfamiliar, and it's also contrary to this survival response that your brain thinks is necessary for your survival brain is going to be really hesitant to let you stay in that response. And so sometimes your nervous system gets sensitive, and the first time that there's a sensory trigger after you've had those calm moments, your nervous system kind of freaks out. And it's basically like, okay, wait a second, let's go back in these responses just to make sure that this person stays alive, right? And so for that reason, you have to accept that this is going to be a tug of war, but you are going to win, okay? You don't have to be perfectly consistent, but we do need to be consistent. And what I want you to practice is reminding yourself that emotions appear to be self-evident, okay? And what I mean by that is whenever you're in a negative emotional state, it appears as if the only evidence that you need to believe the beliefs that you're believing because of that emotion is the fact that you believe them. Well, I believe this. It feels true. It feels like I've lost all my progress. It feels like I'm back to square one. It feels like I'm hopeless. So thus, because I feel this way, it must be true. It appears as if that's all the evidence that you need. It feels real, so thus it must be real. But when emotion increases, logic decreases. The prefrontal cortex starts to shut down. Logical, critical, creative, contextual thinking. And so your feelings right now are valid in the sense of you're experiencing them and they're real, but they're also deceiving you because your feelings are causing you to forget the context and the truth, which is that you haven't lost all your progress at all. You have learned all these self-regulation skills. You've gotten co-regulation for a while. You've got the education that you need. You've learned how to do exposure. You've learned how to do the relaxation skills. You've cleaned up your diet. You've started to hydrate. We've taught you the science of habit theory, right? You've done the pattern interrupts for existential OCD. All these things don't just go away because you're having a bad couple days, right? So that's the context, that's the truth, but because of these emotions, it's making it appear as if those things are not reality. And so what we need to do is we need to make a decision to get back up and execute, even though your feelings are telling you that you're hopeless, even though your emotions are telling you that there's no point and that you're too far gone and that you're the exception. You got to just reach deep down inside and force yourself to get back up and use avoidance-based motivation, right? What's one of the outcomes that you want to avoid, right? I want to just tell yourself, I want to avoid being stuck in this loop of existential OCD and derealization. I want to avoid missing out on my life. Remember, human beings are mostly compelled to avoid a consequence more than they are compelled to gain a positive outcome. So use avoidance-based motivation, okay? I also want to make sure that you're coming to the meetings because being surrounded by this community is going to help you remember that you're not alone in this. Other people go through this all the time. I want to remind you that a big part of what I do is help people in this exact moment, right? Because it is so hard and it feels so real. But I promise you, you're doing awesome. You are on track. You're going to beat this. And let's try to reduce that lag time between whenever this happens, because it will happen again during your recovery and whenever you get back up, right? And just try to just tell yourself, even though this feels real, it's not real, but it's more about action. It doesn't even matter what your beliefs are. It matters what you do, and doing things that communicate safety. That is what's going to show your brain ultimately that you're safe. And if you do things that communicate safety long enough, perceiving safety and relaxation is going to become the new familiar, and then it's going to feel weird to be stressed. That's what you got coming, okay? So anyway, keep your head high. Thank you for sharing that. Let's get back on the horse. Let's not call this a setback. It's just the normal ups and downs of recovery, and let's move forward. And I'm here for you, okay? All right, talk to you soon. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to, which by the way, my alarm went off during that. I don't know if it shut off the audio or anything. Anyway, I'm going to send this to them, and I just wanted to kind of give you a picture of a little bit of what I do. And, you know, it feels so real to people. It feels like their whole world is crashing down and they've lost all their progress. But if they can just execute despite that with things that are communicating safety to the nervous system, which we talked about a little bit of those things, eventually they'll recover. So that's it. I got to get going. You guys are awesome. And click like if this helped you, and if you want me to do more of this stuff, kind of give you a little behind the scenes look and encourage you as I'm encouraging other people, I'd be happy to do it. All right.